In Yellowstone, the stars of the show are almost always the mothers and their cubs. Roadside bears like Raspberry, Snow, and Jam, raising their families in plain view. They have learned that staying close to the road keeps their cubs safe. The boars. They're different. They stay in the shadows, often only showing themselves when the season calls them and it's time to mate. But once in a while, one lingers to earn a story and a place in our hearts. In The Choice, we explore the big questions: boundaries, survival, the future of wild places. But sometimes, it's the small moments that reveal the most. This is Behind the Wild, a closer look at the bears who've captured our hearts. Today, we look at the outsiders, a boar who refuses to stay in the shadows, and two adolescents living dangerously along the roads beyond Yellowstone's borders. Welcome to Behind the Wild. This special mini episode comes from the same creators who brought you The Choice, a Red Pill Wilderness series. This is Behind the Wild. But the conversation doesn't end here. The story is still being written, and we want you to be a part of it. Scan the code to sign up for the Wildline Dispatch and be the first to know when our community launches. Join us on our mission to redefine what it means to coexist. One of those boars that has come from the shadows is G288, a young boar tagged by the park late last year and believed to be about 7 years old. But to us, he's more than a number. He has carved out a place in the roadside story. This year, he didn't disappear into the shadows. He lingered, and in doing so, became a key character we came to know. We first spotted him coming off the ice of Yellowstone Lake early last year. While the park calls him G288, he was given a different name that day by the onlookers: Quill, for the porcupine quill lodged beneath his left eye. Unlike most boars, G288 made himself at home by the roadside. He had a favorite field, a place we found him again and again, in the sun, rain, and snow. One day, we found him stretched out on a log, napping peacefully above the stream that winds through his favorite field. It became a theme with G288. Time and again, we'd catch him dozing along the roadside. Once, he even slept soundly in the middle of a field crowded with 4 other grizzlies, completely at ease. One of our favorite encounters happened one hot summer afternoon earlier this year, when G288 found the perfect spot to escape the heat. He stretched out along a log, right across from us, and settled into a nap. For hours, he dozed in the shade, rolling on his back pawing at branches and tugging at bushes as if the world around him didn't matter. He looked less like a grizzly boar and more like a teddy bear. Carefree, playful, almost childlike. It was easy to forget, watching him that day, the raw power and danger he carried. Because in that moment, G288 seemed to leave the wild battles behind and show us only his gentler side. This was classic G288, the true essence of who he is. But he didn't always nap alone. One day we found him napping with one of the other stars of the show, Jam. Jam was only 5, barely old enough, still carrying herself like a toddler. Yet for days they lingered together, grazing side by side, playing and culling up to nap as if they were inseparable. At times it felt less like a courtship and more like two teenagers just hanging out, playful, carefree, and curious about each other. They moved through the field together as if testing out what it meant to be a pair, never straying far from one another. Watching them, it was easy to forget how unusual this was, a young sow still finding her place, and a boar who seemed happy just to linger at her side. Jam's courtship with G288 seemed unusual enough. But what came next was even more surprising. Snow, Jam's older sister, suddenly pushed her cubs away and claimed G288 for herself. What followed was days of them together, Snow and G288 side by side, grazing, resting, never far from each other. We watched them stretch out in the sun, even snuggling close in a way you almost never see with bears. It was an intimacy that seemed to go beyond instinct, as if they had found comfort in each other's company. And it's how G288 picked up another nickname. To some, he was Quill, but watching him with Jam and then Snow within days of each other, he became Romeo. Romeo and Snow lingered in those fields, a pair bound not just by nature, but by something that looked a lot like affection. After days with Snow, we assumed G288 would disappear into the shadows again. Instead, he surprised us again and returned to Jam. It seemed this time, though, not as a mate, but as a partner in mischief, two young bears, alike in their energy, grazing, playing, and pushing the boundaries side by side. Their bond seemed less about romance and more about kinship. Two restless teenagers, playful and carefree, drawn together by their similarities. G288 gave us a rare look at a boar who refused to stay in the shadows. But he wasn't the only unexpected character this season. Two adolescents soon stepped into the picture, and they were unlike any bears we had ever followed. We first stumbled on them last year when they suddenly appeared on a bluff right above our heads. For 10 unforgettable minutes, they watched us as closely as we watched them, before they climbed back to safety. The adolescents are something of a mystery. We don't know exactly where they came from, or even how old they are. Most believe they're about 5 years old, just stepping into adulthood. They are believed to both be boars, but no one can say for certain. But somehow, in our minds, they've always felt like two young males testing the world together. And they are an anomaly. Grizzlies, by nature, are normally solitary animals. Once they part ways with their mothers, they scatter to find their own paths. But these two have ignored that script. They are inseparable. It's believed they're siblings who never split. And together, they move through the landscape as one, grazing side by side, napping in the same patch of grass, shadowing each other's every step. Always close. Always together. Their bond is rare, and unlike anything we've seen before. If their bond wasn't unusual enough, the way they share food makes it even more remarkable. Normally, when bears come across a carcass, there's tension, dominance, fighting, each one staking a claim. But not with these two. When they stumbled onto a deer carcass in the river, they treated it differently. They fed side by side, quietly for hours, without the squabbles and fights that you'd expect. They spent the entire day with it, eating, then napping, then returning to feed again. Taking turns. Giving each other space. It was less a fight for survival and more a shared ritual between companions. In a world where grizzlies are known for their solitude and competition, these two behaved like something else entirely. Friends. What makes them remarkable is not just who they are, but where they roam. Almost every sighting has been outside of Yellowstone, in the places where the rules change and protection ends. And this has given them the opportunity to find trouble. Over time, the adolescents have built quite a reputation. Employees at the Pahoska teepee have told us that they're always around, getting into mischief. A Wyoming game and fish warden even admitted that if he could, he'd separate them. To some, that makes them troublemakers. But are they really? Or are they just bears being bears, learning to survive in an environment outside the park, where the risks are higher and the rules are different? The truth is, it's probably somewhere in the middle. These two adolescent brothers defied expectations. Grizzlies this age usually split up, but they stuck together. Hunting, feeding, and even getting into trouble side by side. But wildlife officials saw something different. They believed the bond made the bears bolder, less fearful. Last year, they tried everything to break them apart. Traps, horses, even guns. But they failed, and the two brothers refused to separate. Nature's rules aren't so simple. Sticking together made survival easier. But in the eyes of wildlife managers, survival is acceptable only if it fits inside human boundaries. Earlier this summer, the brothers split. Mostly. They still find each other now and then. But alone or together, their future is uncertain. To the public, they're just bears being bears. To the state, they're trouble waiting to happen. We had the pleasure of spending the last 2 days with one of them as he gorged on another deer carcass. So we know that he is still safe. We hope to keep watching them grow, to see how long this rare bond lasts and what they grow up to become. But living outside the park in a risky world with delisting on the horizon, we may never get that chance. These are the small moments that reveal the most. A boar finding companionship in the open. Two adolescents holding onto each other against the odds. Stories that remind us why the wild is worth watching. And worth saving. This is Behind the Wild.